Nah, I don't wanna do it, but I ain't afraid to die. Lord knows I ain't perfect. I ain't trying to tell a lie. It's understood and I ain't hearing all that woulda, coulda, shoulda. Trying to say you want peace, then you burn the.
It was my God's honest that I was all about a non-violent approach, but it seems truth is a non-topic.
Well, I guess I'll ask the surface questions.
Yeah, let's jump right in.
Now, you were in Brooklyn.
Well, first,
actually, my career began my first 6 months on the job. I was in Times Square, the Deuce, when the Deuce was the Deuce back in the 80s.
Okay.
And it was an absolute sewer. It was it was a collection point for all the assholes in the universe in one little spot, 42nd Street, 7th to 8th.
Gotcha.
And that was fun, but, you know, it really wasn't for me. And I ended up, after 6 months, I followed one of my training detectives up to the 34th precinct up in Washington Heights.
Okay.
All right.
That was nuts. Because I don't know if you're familiar with the birthplace of crack, but it was basically around the corner from the 34th precinct.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
and so when did you first go? Was that like mid-80s?
86.
Okay, so that is the time when it just exploded.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the flashpoint of the crack wars.
Wow.
So the most insane, random, violent environment I've ever been in. Was nuts. Couldn't get through a week without getting shot at.
Man.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy back then.
Because you always hear about LA during that time, but I follow a lot of, hip hop artists, and I watch the documentaries on the big crack kingpins and stuff. And some of that New York stuff is pretty wild. Some of those guys were making just millions of dollars, and they're just, New Jack City type of operations and stuff, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, Washington Heights is actually the entry point for all the powder cocaine in the United States.
Okay.
It was, you had the shipping, the completely corrupted shipping across the river in New Jersey, and the George Washington Bridge ran right through Washington Heights. So anybody, and it was all wholesale, kilo and above type of sales, along with street sales.
Right.
So it wasn't uncommon for me to run into a guy, to rub him for a gun, and meanwhile he's got a shopping bag with 7 kilos in it.
Wow.
And you get a guy like that, and meanwhile, all he's doing is he's transporting those kilos to a working spot to sell.
Right.
You get a guy like that, and they're like, just kill me now. Kill me now. I'm like, no, I'm not going to kill you. He goes, well, then they're going to kill my whole family because I can't pay for that.
Were you working these cases to where you were kind of following the trail up, where you bust the street guy?
I didn't do narcotics. Narcotics was not my focus. My focus was violent crime.
Right. Okay.
I was going after gun guys. Obviously, I was rubbing up against drug dealers because they were all armed and they were shooting it out. It was totally unregulated up there.
Yeah.
And the cowboys were fighting each individual corner. And what it was the cartel, the big bosses, weren't regulating anything. Instead of selling franchises, they just let the kids coming over from the Dominican Republic with pennies in their pocket to bang it out on the corners for supremacy.
Yeah.
And it's the reason why it all came to a head. After the riots that I started, when I had to basically save my own life in a hallway fighting it out with a drug dealer, the drug barons, if you will, got smart, and they shut the whole thing down, and they started selling franchises. They were interviewing drug dealers, saying, okay, we're going to keep a lid on this. This is your territory. You don't get to take another half a block.
Right. And you get this area
Exactly. And what would happen, and the reason why it was regulated and it got calm as fast as it did, is that if you went and you broke the edict, they disappeared you and you ended up in a swamp in New Jersey. And it wasn't even a New York murder case anymore.
So that was the streets cleaning the streets up in a way. They were doing a bit of the job for you.
It was the big bosses cleaning out their bad employees,
right,
so that they didn't come to the attention of the police.
Did you ever bump into any of these big crews that are talked about now, like the Supreme Team or any of those guys?
Supreme Team was in Queens.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I didn't deal with them. However, I made the arrest that got the first New York RICO prosecution going up in
Really?
Washington Heights. There was a crew from 157th Street called the Jerry Curls.
Really?
And they were bad dudes. And at the time I was in anti-crime. I was in plain clothes, long ponytail. I know it's hard to believe now looking at me, but yeah, I had beautiful rock star hair, bunch of earrings and the goatee. I never got made as a cop. There was a homicide, a superintendent who was talking to the police about this drug crew who were pretty much killing everybody with impunity. I get called in New York. It's called a 10-2. 10-2 to squad. That means I have a command appearance at the detective squad.
You got sent for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, this was back in the days when detectives were, man, they walked on water. And you didn't go up to the detective squad without an invitation. And even if you went up there, you waited until somebody decided to buzz you in through the electronic door. Like even chiefs would go up there uninvited and unannounced, and they'd stand out there for an hour before they get frustrated and leave.
Wow.
The detective bureau was a different animal back then. And it was a good animal. But anyway, I got called in, I knock at the door, and I remember the civilian who was basically the secretary for the squad. I'm shaking like a leaf. I'm like, I got a 10-2? He's like, relax, Michael, you're not in trouble. Big Daddy wants to see you. Now, Big Daddy was a legendary detective. He turned out to be my mentor, Jerry Giorgio, God rest his soul. One of the most brilliant detectives ever to wear a badge. Big Daddy wants to see me. That's, you know, that's like the leper talking to Jesus at this point.
Yeah.
So he calls me in. He sits me down. He says, go get some coffee. We'll sit down. We'll talk. And I'm sitting across his desk from him, and he shows me an arrest photo. He goes, you know that guy? I'm like, yeah, that's Rambo. I locked him up 4 years ago for gunpoint robberies. I think he's still in prison. He goes, no, he's been out for a year, and we're getting this from an informant that he's the trigger man on the super on a 157 at the Jerry Curls back. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, and I'm also hearing he still has the gun, and you're going to be able to spot it a mile away because it's a great big Desert Eagle 45.
Oh,
Except it wasn't. It was a 50. It was a 50 caliber.
Wow.
Talking about a literal hand cannon.
Yeah, that's a cannon.
yeah, my God.
So I says, all right, Jerry, what can I do for you? He goes, you think you and your team can just shut it down for a week, sit on this guy? We're pretty sure he's using it to protect the spots on 157. Catch him with the gun, lock him up. It's your collar. But then we're going to sit him down and we're going to lean on him. And we're going to see if we can flip him on that homicide. At the very least, we're going to get the ballistics off the gun. I said, yeah, okay. Took us 2 days. I'm sitting in an alcove across the street from the spot, and I'm watching him bringing buyers into the hallway, tossing them, rubbing them down for weapons, handing them a playing card, and sending them upstairs to the spot. But at this point, he doesn't have the gun. Finally, a car shows up from out of state with Jersey plates, and 4 serious-looking gangsters, like black gangsters, get out with empty duffel bags. I'm like, okay. Now I'm going over the point to my partners, like, listen, something's up. He's bringing 4 guys in, and they look on. And then sure enough, he goes to the mailboxes. He has a key. And he opens the center console, flips the thing down, and reaches in, and here comes that giant nickel-plated automatic. I'm like, he's got the gun. Go, 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 go. I go flying across the street, almost get hit by a livery taxi. My partners come pulling on in 2 cars from both sides of the block. He sees us, puts the gun back in the mail chute, closes it, locks it, and throws the key out in the garbage in the chute at the side of the building. The 4 guys from Jersey see us coming in, and they're like, oh no, and they get right down on the floor. All 4 of them were on, by the way.
Wow.
So those are 4 gun arrests right there. We grab him, and we're debating, what do we do I think we're going to have to secure the building and get a warrant unless we find the kid. My partner wades out into neck-high garbage, rats running all over the place, and he actually comes up with the king.
Oh man.
So now we lock Rambo up, and he's like, "Oh no, not you again, Keefe." I'm like, "Yeah, me again." I bring him up to the squad, and Jerry and another detective, Joe Montori, another brilliant detective. It was interesting that they worked together because they kind of had the same easygoing personality, but Joe could be the bad cop when he needed to.
Right.
So I'm sitting like a fly in the wall in the interrogation room, and Jerry Giorgio is sitting, big 6'4", solid, sitting across, just smiling benignly, and Joe Montori is getting all excited, screaming, yelling, threatening. He gets Rambo on the defensive. "I'm not going to tell you nothing," he said. Montori says, "I can't talk to this guy. I'm getting out of here before I put a bullet in his brain pan." And he walks out. And now Rambo gets all touchy. He starts sniffling. He looks at Jerry with big sad eyes. He goes, "You don't understand, Giorgio. I didn't have a chance. You got to help me." Jerry reaches out, pats him on the arm, and says, "Tell Big Daddy what happened." He came out with all of it.
Oh man.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there. I'm just a kid with about 5 years on the job. And I'm sitting in the corner like, I know what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
That's when I knew what I wanted to do for a living at that point.
That's the part of police work that intrigues me. I watch a lot of these interrogation videos,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a certain amount of I don't know, psychotherapists in a good detective, or at least a chess player, or something.
Yeah.
It's 100% psychotherapy. Just from having done so many homicides, and most of the murders in New York, if they're not family related, they're drug related.
Mm-hmm.
There's some sort of gangbanger issue going on there. And what you have to do, if you're going to get a confession out of someone, you have to do your due diligence and figure out what exactly are they. Because there are a couple of types of violent criminals, and the two most prominent murderers, you have the ice cold psychopath who does not feel guilt, doesn't know what the word means. And then you have the other person who you can tell they're feeling guilty about it because this was an unnatural act for them. They elevated to a level of violence and rage that is just not who they are.
Yeah.
Those people are easy because you can milk it out of them.
Right.
And you can lead them to believe that they are going to feel much better when they get this off the chest.
Yeah, exactly.
Because human beings have a need to confess.
Right.
Yeah,
it's there.
I believe that.
You just have to touch the right buttons. Now, with the psychopaths, you have to go completely the other way. And the way I used to interrogate them is I would go in, and the first 2 or 3 hours, I'd be asking innocuous questions and behaving like a boo. Smiling, giggling, nodding my head, answering some of my own questions, making them feel comfortable, and making them feel superior to me.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you lock them into their bullshit version of the story. Well, now the second time we go through it, I'm not a bumbling idiot. Now I'm going to start pointing at inconsistencies. And I'm also going to start pulling out some evidence that makes a lie to what they're telling me. And then after about 5 or 6 hours, now I'm the Prince of Darkness. And all I'm going to do is insult you as a human being and insult your criminal acumen and insult your intelligence until you snap your carrot, get up, and start telling me everything you did and that I'll never catch you.
Yeah, they're doing it to prove, like, no, I knew what I was doing. I'm smart.
They're more concerned about how they're perceived than whether or not they spend their life in prison.
Double check this thing's running like it should be.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, it's all good.
Is
just
it
checking.
going? Okay.
Yeah, it just usually doesn't light up like that.
Okay.
Yeah, did you kind of always know that you're gonna like? Do you have other police officers in your family? Did you always know you were gonna go into this, or?
No, but I grew up in a neighborhood in New York, very lower middle class, and everybody, my group, all the kids, when you turned 16, you took all of the civil service exams. Police, fire, sanitation, took them all. And, you know, a lot of the guys I was hanging out with, we were all ball players. A lot of us were going to get scholarships. We weren't necessarily locked into having to become cops, but it was like something you put in your back pocket and you waited for them to call. And back then it took them a couple of years to get it because so many people took the test. It took a number of years before they got to you. And you're not eligible to be hired until you're 20 anyway. So that was kind of a fallback for me. And I went to school, played ball. I actually left college. I was about 3 credits shy of an English degree. I was bartending one last summer out in the Hamptons, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with an English degree except teach? And I don't like kids that are younger. I don't like anybody. I don't want to teach. It probably would have been a good career move because then I would have been coaching football.
Yeah.
You know, through that whole time, I'd probably have my own. It
just didn't sound appealing. It didn't sound like what you want to do. I didn't want to be
a teacher. I didn't want to work indoors.
Yeah.
So my plan was to join the Marine Corps. As soon as the summer ended, I was going to go. I already had an agreement with a staff sergeant from the Marine Corps, one of the recruiters that used to drink out in the Bordy Barn. And I says, listen, I'm coming to see you in October. I'm done playing football. I'm done with everything. I said, it's time for me to be a man. I'm going to go to the Marine Corps. He's like, perfect. You're just who we want. That August, my sister finds me out in the Hamptons. Says, you got to come home. Daddy's dying. He's going to lose the house. Mommy's going to be living in the street. I left when I was 17. I didn't want to go back.
Yeah.
But I obviously couldn't let my mother live in the street either.
Yeah.
Right.
So I went back. It was worse than I had previously been led to believe. Like, my father really put them in a bad hole. He was a degenerate gambler. He was an alcoholic. He was just about everything that could be wrong with a man was wrong with him.
Right.
And financially, it took me 8 years to dig her out of that hole. I took the basement apartment in our house in Queens and pretty much paid her mortgage. But at the time, I figured I was going to be a cop for 2 or 3 years, go back to school, get a master's degree, and then get on with my life. I call up the investigator who I had been running around. She wanted me to come up to the Bronx to sign myself off of the list as a candidate. I'm like, yeah. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm not paying a toll to come up to see you. I'm never going to see you again. I'm going to Paris Island, and then I'm going somewhere, some deep, dark corner of the world you'll never find.
Right.
I call her back. I'm like, listen, my circumstances in my life have changed drastically. I need the job now. She's like, you son of a bitch. She made me begin my investigation right from the beginning.
Wow.
And she gave me a hard time too. It took it. Finally, I think the thing that put her over the edge, and I got into the academy class that I got into, I was doing ironwork in Manhattan. And it was February, and it was cold, and it was windy. And at 11 o'clock in the morning is your first coffee break. I went downstairs from the 40th floor on the high iron, went to the payphone, called her up crying. You got to get me in the next academy class. I can't do this, Rosie.
You broke.
Yeah.
You broke.
So basically, that's why I became a cop. But I didn't think I was going to stick with it that long until I got into my first gunfight. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. The adrenaline rush you get.
Yeah.
You like the thrill of it then.
There's nothing in the world that you will ever experience. And unlike if you listen to drug addicts who are always trying to chase that initial high, with respect to an adrenaline rush, there's no diminishment. Every time you get that rush, you're getting just as high.
Right. Yeah, I bet.
So it was horrifying. It was terrifying, but I never felt so alive as when people would try to kill me.
I get that.
Yeah.
I totally get that.
I understand that.
Reminds me of the near life experience in Fight Club.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
he makes them drive off the road and everything. Yeah, that's some Pelniak stuff right there.
Go with some control.
Did you have a particular when you came into it, did you have the mind of somebody who kind of wanted to make a difference, certain values you wanted to bring to it? Or was it just kind of like, I think I would enjoy this. I like the thrill of it. you know.
All the thrill of it and enjoying it, all of that stuff is incidental. And a lot of people don't get this. Well, there are people that go into civil service and police work who are just looking for a steady paycheck because they'd starve if they were out in private industry.
Yeah.
There aren't that many of them. 95% of everybody who becomes a cop does so because A, they want to do something important. They want to do something to help people. And they want to do something that's, well, frankly, no day is the same as the last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's different every day. So people go into it with all the right reasons. They go in for all the right reasons. What happens of those 95% that go in, kind of want to save the world, is they get beaten down by the system.
Yeah.
And they quit and they go dead and they find an inside detail where they're still cops, but they're not doing police work.
Right.
Because police work is hard.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the worst kept secret in professional law enforcement. And that's 95% of police work is done by 5% of the cops. Everybody else is just turning paper over.
Yeah. I'm kind of gathering that even just from reading your book. Like, I'm not even that far into the first one yet, but like I can see like that it's, a select few that really know what they're doing and are
Like go-getters,
doing it,
kind of.
Yeah, I think I refer to them as gun guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that is it the system that's really beating these guys down, or is it also what they're seeing in the street? Because I feel like you see enough death and just horrible people, it's going to start wearing on you. It's going to start making you dark.
Well, you know what? There's that, but I'm speaking in terms of like the early mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
The system, government wasn't beating you down as badly. You didn't have district attorneys who were after you like they are today. They flat out want to lock you up for looking crooked at someone.
Right.
You literally cannot be the police in today's environment, at least in New York. And that's the reason why so many of these cops are lasting a year and resigning. They're like, nope, not for me.
Yeah.
And I get it. I understand. I couldn't be
You're not allowed to do your job is the problem.
I couldn't be a cop in this environment.
Mm.
Ultimately, what happens is, of those 95% that go in wanting to do the right thing and get beaten, the ones that get beaten down, for the most part, they get beaten down because it's hard. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
And the thing about the police department, at least in the NYPD, it's such a labyrinthine bureaucracy. There's plenty of stuff to do for guys who don't want to mix it up on the street.
Yeah.
And frankly, we want them to go do those jobs because we don't want them in our way.
Right. Yeah.
They complicate things. They make mistakes.
Right.
They pick on the wrong people.
Yeah.
All I'm thinking about is The Wire.
I know.
You know those two drunk detectives that never do anything and they're happy to do nothing?
Yes.
And then you got the young guys that go out there and
move them to the office.
Yeah, move them to the office.
Did you ever watch the show The Wire?
No, I've heard great things about it.
Oh man, you gotta watch it.
You probably heard this.
I think the guy that made that also made Sons of Anarchy, didn't he? Isn't he the same producer?
No, he didn't make Sons of
Anarchy. No,
Anarchy.
it's a different guy.
He made
a couple episodes of Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, he did help with a few episodes of it.
But yeah, it really is based on Baltimore, during that era.
Yeah.
So it's kind of autobiographical.
Yeah, the police side, the street side.
The reason why I didn't hook in,
all of that.
Why I didn't hook in to watch that is, while a detective in Brooklyn, I had to go down to Baltimore to go get a homicide suspect. And the Baltimore detectives were fucking useless.
Really?
A lot of them were on the show too.
Okay, well, the ones I dealt with, I couldn't trust them as far as I could spit a rat. I definitely didn't want to get into a tight space with them where I had to fight my way out.
Yeah,
I would have to rescue them too. It was just such a bad experience. We ended up ditching him at a diner. Me and my partner, we went out and found the guy, grabbed him up, and took him right to court.
I wonder if it's like, see, we're originally from Detroit.
Yeah.
And it's just desolate. It was murder capital at one point. Baltimore is kind of the new Detroit. And it seems like the cops just, they had a certain shift in certain neighborhoods where they didn't patrol, they didn't work, they wouldn't answer a call.
Yeah, I mean,
too dangerous. They're not doing that shit. And they've given up. They're kind of like,
there's like areas of Detroit where for sure that like these cops will not, if they get a call, they're trying everything possible, no matter how violent, how bad the call is, to not go to that neighborhood at all. I mean, I had an instance where I was actually being followed by a fake cop who was trying to shoot at my vehicle and shot my vehicle twice. We had somebody call 911 twice. The cops hung up on us. 911 hung up on us twice, didn't try to call us back, and nobody ever was sent or anything like at all.
There's a name for it, the something or other shift.
It was a certain time of night, and it was a really bad area, and they just weren't having anything to do with that.
And it's not so much cowardice either. It's kind of like they've given up.
It's just like why, they have in a lot of
it's cowardice.
You think so? I mean, I would give up, but
I'm not a police officer, so I cannot speak in that realm, but I would think if you're going to apply for that job and not just be a cop sitting at a desk, and you're going to be out doing the work, that you should be prepared. Like, these are things I'm going to probably have to face. So even if I'm scared, I'm going to have to go face them. Otherwise, why be it?
Okay, let me put it in perspective for you. If you don't mind my asking, how old are you?
32.
I'm 43 yesterday.
All right. Are you the same person you were when you were 21?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah, that's the situation. You go in thinking things are one way.
Right.
You change, and things are not the way that are conducive to who you want to be.
Right.
And you pretty much retire in place.
Yeah.
Like I said, for the alphas that are running out there doing the police work, we're fine with that. Just get out of the way.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It really does.
It does.
Even in business, I've always been that person. It's like, I'm going to do something. You can sit, even at my job now, he likes to sit in the office.
Right.
I got to be doing something.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense for sure. I never really thought about it. I signed up to do this thing, even though it sucks. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm going to have some pride in it. But yeah, with Detroit, it could be partly cowardice, but what I wanted to ask is like, and I should maybe know the answer to this, but do you have any say-so over where you serve as an officer, or are you just kind of put somewhere?
Well, that depends. If you have, because I was so active as a rookie, and I had an uncle who was a detective sergeant in major case, he had a phone call in personnel. So when I was leaving Midtown, I got to choose to go uptown.
Okay.
And the way that conversation went was that he called me when my 6 months of field training were to be up. It's where I met my wife, by the way. We were rookie cops together. But,
wow. No kidding. She's a cop. That's it.
She stayed in Manhattan South. That they really didn't want me in that borough. It's just not for me. In any event, he calls me up. He goes, so listen, I can, wherever you want, I can get you anyway. You want to stay in Midtown South? You want to go to Midtown North? You can work in the theater district. I'm like, nah, I don't think I'm a good fit here, Uncle Jack. I want to go up. I want to go up to the 3-4. He goes, what are you, out of your mind? I'm like, yeah, a little bit. Look crazy on your edges. That's where I want to go. My training detective is in the squad up there now. He says, that's the place for me. He goes, listen, I can do that, but you don't need me for that contract. You can get the precinct drunk who's the broom. You can do that contract for you. Well, all right, that's what I want. Get it done. He goes, I will under one condition. You can't tell your aunt I had anything to do with it. You screwed up, and this is where they sent you.
There you go.
So all you need is a small phone call if you want to go to a place that really needs police.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I wondered, because a lot of times it seems like some of these guys are in over their head in some of these neighborhoods. Like they didn't expect it to be quite that wild, quite that violent. Like maybe somebody from like Oak Park, which is a suburb just north of Detroit, ends up on the east side of Detroit, and it's a completely different.
Yeah.
It's night and day.
I mean, I can't. I can't talk. I'd be terrified to be a police officer over there. I would be terrified.
Oh, that brings me to one of the main things I wanted to talk about is how the public perceives police officers and treats police officers. Do you see a big difference then to now? was there at least a little respect for law enforcement back then?
Yeah, but you know what the other thing was is there were things the police could do to encourage better behavior.
Yeah.
We were actually allowed to take people to jail for things like disorderly conduct,
Right.
assault on a police officer.
Yeah. Which should, you know.
They can't put their hands on them anymore. They're getting doused with milk and water. And here's the other aspect. And it's one of the main reasons why the police can't be the police anymore. Violence is inherently ugly. There's no way to dress it up. When you witness it, it's traumatic. But the simple fact of the matter is, with respect to law enforcement and the criminal procedure laws of every police department in the nation, the use of force is mandated by almost a force majeure. Whatever level of force they're using, you're using one level higher to arrest, to stop an assault, to stop violence, to restrain the suspect, get him handcuffed, and get him to jail.
Right.
Gotcha.
Now, just because I'm authorized to punch someone 7 times, breaking all the bones in their face, doesn't mean it's going to look real good on video.
Right.
Right.
It's going to horrify people. And they're going to think that that's a crime, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's called necessary force.
Hmm.
I can't tell you how many people I had to fight hand and fist and feet, who were either trying to shoot me or take my head off with a tire iron, a 2x4, a baseball bat.
Mm-hmm.
But I elected to duke it out because I have those skills. If I don't have those skills, what do I got to go to? I got to beat them with a club.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Can you imagine how hideous that looks on video?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Now consider the fact that every single encounter in metropolitan police all over the country, every single encounter is on audio and video. The language is harsh. The violence is, well, quite frankly, it's repugnant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's supposed to be. Human beings are supposed to be repulsed by violence.
Right.
But the simple fact of the matter is, the only way to overcome violence is with greater violence.
That's right.
We've lost touch with that reality. And as a result, now we have cops running around trying to protect us who are not permitted to even protect themselves.
Yeah.
See, that's a recipe to get killed, because I grew up in the street, basically. I was involved in dumb shit when I was younger. And if you went into these situations not knowing what you could do or being on the fence about things, or that's when you get hurt.
Yeah.
When you can't commit either way and you're frozen in place.
Right.
That's when someone gets hurt.
The training and the culture has regressed to this point to actually put cops in danger coming right out of the academy.
Absolutely.
Because when I got started, the old timers, the officers who were in the academy who were doing the training, many of which were hiding from the street, but we'll get in. That's not important now. So basically, the old timers you worked with,
Mm-hmm.
you were told, you're the police. You have to be the police. If you decide I don't want to get involved with this guy and you punk out and you walk away, that's a problem for the next cop.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you have a situation, you handle it. You do what you need to handle it. You don't do more than you need to, just what you need to.
Right.
And then the message gets out. Don't play with the blue.
Well, I think that's like a big problem now too, is that, like, you know, like you said, don't do more than you need to, do what you need to. So it's like, okay, but now, you know, we have one case or something that'll show up and it's like an extreme case where, you know, more than needed to be done was done. But then that turns into this whole thing
Well,
where, like, they shouldn't be allowed to do
Memphis,
anything like that. They shouldn't be allowed to defend themselves at all. They shouldn't be allowed to touch you. They shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah.
Get
It's
rid
like,
of them.
well, what in the hell are they
Yeah.
supposed to do then? Just let you, you know, beat the crap out of them? Just let you, you know, I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, the case that you described sounds like Memphis to me. And
Yeah.
and here's the reason why
That was a personal thing, partly, I read.
I don't care what the reasoning was.
Yeah.
They were pulling him over on a traffic stop.
Right.
If he runs away, take the plate, do an investigation, tow the car.
Right.
You know what he looks like. Find him again.
Yeah, exactly.
You got his ID, his registration.
What happened in that particular situation is you had a bunch of cops with 0 time on in an elite unit already.
Right.
And just 3 years before, none of them would have been eligible to be police officers.
Right.
They lowered the hiring standards because they're not getting anyone to take the job.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
So, okay, you're going to beat up on the police so they can't protect themselves. You're going to get legitimate, up from the ground thugs.
Right.
Who are going to take those jobs.
Right, because no one wants to take them. God forbid you know have to do anything.
You don't
You're
want to
gonna
put
get
the police for the
psychopaths,
right
too.
reasons aren't applying anymore.
That's crazy.
It's shameful.
That makes total sense, though. That the bar is lowered, and now some guys are going to get in there that are even worse.
And society has done that. They've done that because of all the freaking bullshit and all the screaming and this, that,
Like
and the
you
other.
said, it's like anything
You know?
else. You take those visuals, you pair that up with some, in my opinion, political bullshit. You put those two together, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
You know, wow, look at this on video, defund, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, defund
you know.
the police. Oh, for the love of God.
Meanwhile, none of these people would want any of these actual street animals living next door to them or in their house.
All right, but let's
they'd be
put
the
'em-
first to call you.
But let's put them on the police force, you know, because, you know, no, everyone's now afraid to take the job because you make one, you breathe wrong, and all of a sudden you're, you know, going to jail.
And they
It's
make
like,
an example of it.
like,
We're
my
dealing
God,
with
can a
that in
cop
New York
not
right
do his
now.
job at all anymore? They really can't. They can't.
Yeah. Well, just recently in New York, the deputy commissioner of training, unilaterally, without conferring with the police commissioner, the mayor, or anyone else, she decided that she was throwing out the physical requirements in the police academy, in the gym, to be certified as physically fit. No obstacle course, no wall to jump, no body fat count, none of that. And you go on Facebook as retired law enforcement, you're talking to cops all over the guys that you worked with, guys and girls you worked with, cops from all over the country, and they're all losing their minds over this. And I had to inject a little reality into it. They don't want you being the police anymore, so why not hire fat slobs who can't get out of the car?
Right.
Yeah.
Because they don't want them interacting with criminals. Now you've guaranteed this 400-pound blob is not going to chase anyone.
Right.
In fact, he's using the takeout counter at Burger King.
I, for one, feel so much safer with that, you know, on the road. Like, come on.
You're going to get a little bit of that even if they didn't take, like, I was, you know, I'm in the gym all the time. My son's in the gym all the time, one of my sons. And, you know, there's certain amounts of weight, you know, based on your body weight, that X amount of the percent of the population can do. And what's interesting about that is if you go back 50 or 60 years, there's this huge difference to where despite better diet, better training, all of that stuff, guys are way weaker now. Way weaker.
Well, only if you go by the weight differentials. Because people are bigger.
Yeah.
Frames are wider. We're packing on more muscle. The thing is, the only people who are in shape are the athletes. And you see them in the gym every day.
Right.
Either they are athletes, or they were athletes, or they've got that athletic mentality. They've understood their whole lives that the secret to a happy life is to move more and eat less and be creative. That's it. That's it. That's the secret.
That does it.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. That's exactly literally.
I actually was going to put that out as a self-help book, but 3 sentences aren't going to get you many book sales. So the only people who are really moving heavy weight anymore are people that are training for things like football.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if you look at the style of training now, it's all athletic movement simulating what you're doing.
Yeah, functional and CrossFit.
Exactly, that's the word, functional. I don't train that way. I have too much arthritis.
Right.
I'm still getting on the bench under 4 plates because I know that the 18-year-olds can't do it, and here's the 60-year-old guy who's knocking out a set of 5 with it.
No,
see, that's great. That's
it's all
great.
ego. At my age, it's all ego. It's not good for you.
Right. Yeah,
but you know what? I want to hold on to my strength for as long as I can. So
yes.
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. I mean, it's just a whole thing where I guess what bothers me is that there's a whole thing against manhood, and it seems to weave its way into my perception of every topic, where it's like they want men docile, they don't want us doing the job, our masculinity is toxic. You know, guys are supposed to just kind of sit around and play video games all day.
Or just be super
Testosterone's going like this over the last 50 years
Yeah.
in a way that science can't even understand. And that's what they're pushing for. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it scares me that men can't be men anymore.
It's terrifying. It's gross, and it's makes me sad for our sons that are growing up, you know, seeing this.
Yeah, it
Well,
feels good.
my son will be fine. He's 28. And he's not going to have any issue with that. Kid's a world-class strength athlete.
That's great.
I see this trend, but here's the thing: testosterone gets shit done.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You want to beat men down? Do it all you want, but it's to your own peril. All those
Yeah.
things that they did, they won't be doing for you because they're bigger women than you are. Which is not to say that women aren't capable. They're 100% capable. But traditionally, there has been a role for men.
Well, yeah,
And
of
they're
trying
trying to
it's being
kill it.
taken away.
Culturally, the elites in this country are trying to kill it.
Exactly.
Because and you know what? I'm not even gonna go with the whole man thing. The alpha personalities, and women can have them just as easily as men. I know because I'm married to one. They're still going to be alphas.
Absolutely.
You can beat down all that middle ground, but the alphas are still going to be there.
Mhm.
And when all of it falls to shit, we're going to laugh. We're going to say we told you so.
Well, yeah.
You know,
That's exactly what we talk about on a daily.
this is something that Andrew Tate, I'm sure you're familiar with Andrew Tate. There's some good and some bad.
Right.
He has a take on them beating down the masculinity is basically if you go after that type of person and you make them I don't know replaceable or make them toxic or make them evil, those are
Have
your
them
fighting,
canceled, basically.
huh?
Have them canceled, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is your that's your warrior class.
Right. So what are you
So
gonna do when shit hits
where's
the
your
fan?
people that can fight back against, say, an oppressive government or against this
Mhm.
power, that power? They've all been locked up, made to be broke. You know, they're not allowed to speak in society. Now you have no movers and doers. You have no protectors. You have
Right.
no warriors.
Yeah. So then,
I mean, who you breaking down? You're breaking down the people that historically, like you said, protected, served, and helped the entire community as one.
yeah.
And we're doing away with those people, and I think he's right about
Well, I think we've trended away from those people, but the backlash is coming.
Yeah.
Everything is cyclical. Can you imagine in Victorian England what the class of male was?
Hmm.
I mean, for God's sakes, they were wearing powdered wigs to court.
Right.
That's
yeah.
true.
Those weird little outfits.
But yet England came back.
Yeah, sort of.
Look at the generation from World War I and World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
that's true.
granted, they were the iron workers, they were the coal miners, they were the shipbuilders, but they never went away.
Mm-hmm.
And it took an alpha personality to save them in the Second World War with Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
Churchill
That's right.
was a punching bag to the Tory government. And then all of a sudden, they screwed up the beginning of Germany when Germany got aggressive. They screwed it up so bad, finally the effete English had to turn around and say, let's get the soccer hooligan in charge.
Right.
Mhm.
He'll know what to do.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
if you
the
don't
thing.
think that's going to happen here, it's going to. Everything runs in cycles.
Yeah.
I hope you're right, and I hope that damn cycle comes around soon.
Yeah.
Well,
You know what I mean?
We have
I
to-
hope it comes around in my lifetime. However, I am utterly prepared to take care of me and my family
Yeah.
until it
Yeah.
does. So I'm good.
That's how we feel too about all of that.
Did you deal with this wasn't your precinct or anything like that, but back when similar to stuff that's happened recently, they had like that Central Park 5 thing I think that was right around the time you would have been like a rookie.
Yeah, I was on the job at the time, and I'm going to tell you right now, they were guilty.
Really?
They were not. They weren't. I don't care what you're reading in the media. I don't care what bullshit shows they're putting on Netflix. They were not exonerated.
Kick me.
They were guilty.
Wow.
However, because they never got a DNA hit off of the semen sample from the victim for the rape, and they had these 5 kids who confessed their involvement in the robbery and beatdown and holding her down for the rapist, who kind of wandered onto the robbery. Like he wasn't with them. He wandered in the middle of them beating the jogger down and robbing her. And he hopped on for a sex assault. He ends up popping in the DNA database years later. And now the media jumps on it like, oh, they were wrongly convicted. No, they were not wrongly convicted. There's such a thing. Accessorial conduct. If in the course of me doing a robbery, one of the people that I'm doing the robbery with or doing the beatdown with turns around and turns it into a sex assault, everybody involved is guilty of the sex
That's like
assault.
Indiana kids.
It's called accessorial conduct.
That's what it's called. Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, my thing with that was that whole case changed the way that people treated police, kind of the way like this George Floyd, if I'm allowed to say his name, or any of this other stuff. You know, was there a hatred toward police instantly after that case or no?
No. As a matter of fact, the Central Park 5, when they actually got arrested and they got put away, it was friends of mine, the detectives in Manhattan North, that did those cases. And they were brilliant. I knew the prosecutor, Liz Lederer, brilliant prosecutor. Everything was everything with that case. They flat out conceded in their closing statements. We know that these 5 defendants did not participate in the sex assault, but they did participate in the robbery by their own admission, the robbery, the beatdown, and several of the defendants, 3 of them actually, admitted to holding her down while the other guy performed the, it's really hard not saying the words that it is.
No, I know.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
The sex assault.
Yeah.
They held her down, knowing he was doing that. There isn't a level of culpability there? Of course there is.
Yeah, see
But
with that.
Bill de Blasio, the worst mayor in the history of New York City. Bill de Blasio was the mayor, newly minted mayor, when the exoneration came down. He actually arranged it for the lawyers to put the appeal in front of a judge who was waiting for the case to overturn it. So he overturned the convictions, leaving it in the district attorney's ballpark. Well, if you want, you can retry them. The lead detective was dead.
Huh.
Half of the witnesses, the jogger herself passed away.
Yeah.
You can't take a 10-year-old case back to trial.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, but the likelihood of having all your evidence and all your witnesses isn't there. And then de Blasio turns around and he hands these people millions of dollars without even having them have to sue for it.
Well, regardless of even his personal feeling on that, that's just a political move. It looks good.
It didn't look good. It didn't look good.
That's what he thought at the time anyways.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, this is a guy that would probably get thrown off of a soup line.
Now, was he, like, I actually read up a little bit on the incident that you had. Was he, I think it was the mayor who was kind of the only individual who was negative toward you in that situation.
No,
like,
you're wrong. He wasn't the only one. He wasn't the only one. There was a cabal of people that wanted my head on a stick. And interestingly enough, Bill de Blasio was his first post in government. He was Mayor David Dinkins' Deputy Commissioner of Community Affairs. Okay. So he was part of the Dinkins administration, the administration that went after me and tried to get me done for murder.
Yeah, I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was an old article, an archived article, and it gave some witnesses input who are essentially on the other guy's side. and their stories were so different from each other. One's like, oh yeah, he's just pointing a gun at a guy for no reason. The other one's, he was beating him up with a radio. Another one is this other story, and I'm like, damn, couldn't these people at least get together and have the same story? It was so different. I couldn't believe what I was reading, to be honest.
I thought that the radio aspect that I was beating him with was actually funny, because when he dragged me into that hallway, right in the beginning of the fight, he knocked the radio out of my hand. So I can't call for help. I don't know where I am. Didn't expect to be inside of a building. My partners are running around. They don't know where I am. I hear them calling for me over the radio. Where are you? I spent 5 minutes. And if you've ever been in a fight for 5 minutes, you know that that's endless.
It's a long fight.
Yeah, a minute is a long fight. For 5 full minutes, I did everything I could not to shoot him. 3 times he had his gun in my mouth, and didn't manage to get I managed to knock the gun away. We're wrestling over his gun, and I couldn't get it out of his hand. And the evidence, because it was such an enclosed environment, it was a big, long, like marble hallway in a big apartment building in Washington Heights. And it was clean. So all the blood, the fingerprints, everything's pristine in the crime scene. You can see from the blood droplets coming out of both of our faces, because we were kicking the shit out of each other.
Wow.
And the guy was huge. He looked like Albert Pujols.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, second, big Dominican kid. And he
looked like he should hit 600 homers, bro.
Right, exactly. And he was whacked out on coke, and it was just... Finally, it got to the point, the third time I looked down the barrel of that gun, and by this point, the barrel was looking like a sewer plate. I pulled my gun and fired twice, and it was over. And that was it. That was the whole thing.
Right. And it's kind of like 5 minutes of your life can just totally...
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you did what the hell you had to fucking do. I'd have done the same thing.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
I wouldn't have been able to wait the 5 minutes. I mean,
Well, what happened now is the politicians and the media got involved. And at the time, the deputy police commissioner was Ray Kelly, who ended up ascending to be the police commissioner. The guy who was the police commissioner, we called him Out of Town Brown. This would have been his second riot in 2 summers. He said, nope, I'm out. And he left. Didn't stick around. Ray Kelly does what an experienced cop and commissioner does. He calls the detectives. He looks into it. Everything's everything. There is no unrest in Washington Heights the night of the shooting. None. I'm at a barbecue at my friend's house, and my wife, she was doing a detail in the 13th precinct at the time. She had a take-home phone, and it was back when cell phones were the size of bricks. But she had a department cell phone in her purse, and the thing's going off on the evening of the 4th of July. It's her partner who went to work that day, and he ended up getting sent up to Washington Heights from Manhattan South. Every cop in the city was up there for the riots.
Wow.
And he gets my wife on the phone, and we weren't married yet. And he says, why am I getting shot at on a rooftop? Shot at on a rooftop in Washington Heights. And your boyfriend started it. And my wife is like, what? They're rioting up here. He says, they're burning buildings, they're burning stores, they're burning taxis. So she says, Pete's telling me that they're rioting up in the Heights. I'm like, give me that phone. So I'm talking to him. I'm like, oh shit, I guess this isn't a bunt. It must have hit a seam in the carpet and went into left field. I hung up with Pete. I called the detective squad in the 3-4. I'm like, listen, I'm hearing shit is off the hook up there. Yeah, you better go call your lawyer. That's what I was told.
Wow.
And I was public enemy number, because now the newspaper articles come out, and they're all coming from the mayor. Office. Ray Kelly tried to explain to the Post that by all accounts and all the evidence present and all the witness testimony, we got a good, young, aggressive cop taking guns off the street, got into a fight with a guy that was going to kill him if he didn't shoot him first. Dinkins went to Kelly the next day and told him, "Shut up. All comment comes from the mayor's office."
Oh, wow.
He knew, David Dinkins knew the impossibility of my guilt. And he was going to give me up so he could, well, first of all, protect his Democratic National Convention, which was coming that summer to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I read that too. Yeah.
York. And then the other aspect of it was, there was some shenanigans in the mayoral election when he got elected. Awful lot of votes coming in from Washington Heights and very few citizens living there.
Oh, well, that sounds familiar.
Oh, so this is kind of like one of those Biden things.
Yeah.
This happened long before Biden, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
The originators.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah.
But basically, he owed the Dominican cartel because they stole the election for him.
Wow, that's like the Kennedy thing in
Yeah,
Chicago.
right.
Oh, that's something I wanted to ask you. Did you have any dealings with any of the? Because you know the La Cosa Nostra still was actually powerful at the time when you started out as a cop. Did you have any dealings with any of those guys?
I had dealings with them growing up. I grew up in mafia neighborhoods.
Oh, did you?
I played football, baseball, and basketball with guys who grew up to be mob killers.
Wow.
No kidding.
And I did a couple of cases that were organized crime involved, homicides.
Okay.
And they
Where did you grow up? Which did you grow up?
I grew up right on the borderline of Brooklyn and Queens, Bushwick, Ridgewood.
Yeah.
But I played, and I grew up hanging out and playing ball with guys from Brownsville, from Bed-Stuy, East New York. I played travel baseball with the Dominican Puerto Rican teams. I had to learn Spanish.
Huh. I've heard East New York is like a scary place. Like East New York is pretty bad.
Yeah, it is.
That's it. But did you ever have maybe a little more respect for the organizations, meaning whether it's La Cosa Nostra or it's a large organized gang, somebody who had a code, kind of like what you described earlier when they kind of franchised?
Who has
Is there a little bit of respect there? Like,
who has a code?
Well, the mob did in the 60s.
They don't have a code. They never had a code. They have always been rat bastards that would sell their mother for $3.
It's kind of true.
No, it's absolutely true. I grew up with these guys. I saw it from the inside.
A lot of backstabbing.
There's no honor among thieves.
Right.
You know who made Robin Hoods out of the mafia? Mario Puzo.
Oh yeah,
we
were just talking about him last night.
They were just thugs, and they knew it. They were just thugs.
Right.
None of them stand up. Actually, the last guy that stood up, really stood up, apart from John Gotti, which he was dying anyway, so why not die in a Supermax?
Right.
Kid I grew up playing semi-pro football with, Vito Guzzo. Tough guy. He was a Genovese. He was actually best friends with John Jr.
Yeah. With who?
John Jr. John.
Okay.
Oh.
Wait, what was his name?
Vito Guzzo.
Sounds familiar. I think Larry Potts.
Maybe he ran a crew. He ran a crew out of Queens that used to do commercial robberies, like taking down payrolls. They were called the Giannini Boys because they hung out in the Italian coffee shop on Woodbine and Fresh Pond called Giannini's. So they were the Giannini crew. Vito ended up having a button because he it wasn't a hit. It was send a message. He shot somebody in the ass in a bar on Myrtle Avenue and did 4 years for that.
Mm.
And when he was out on bail, I was still playing football with him at the time. And he was our starting strong safety. I was a starting inside linebacker. And I went to his house to complain. Couldn't you wait until the football season was over?
Right.
He's like, I know.
Priorities, man.
He kept his mouth shut. He did a couple of years. It was basically a contract, shoot somebody in the ass to send a message deal. And so he does his time. He comes out. And he's showing a lot of respect. So they give him this crew. And they're like, here's a bunch of young, hungry guys. See if you can make money. And the first thing that this violent psychopath thinks of is, I'm going to take down payrolls. I'm not content with gas stations and liquor stores. I'm taking down big corporate payrolls.
Mm.
And he was slick.
He had aspiration.
Vito was a good-looking guy, and he would work his way inside the corporation into their bookkeeping, some girl that worked there. And he would romance them for the inside information.
Nice.
In one particular case, he got the girl to delay a weekly deposit. So the $1 million take was $2.5 million.
Oh,
Nice.
And they were hitting these things, and
Wow.
everybody was scared to death of them. So nobody grabbed it. Vito gets his button. He's full-blown Genovese, but he's making money with the other 5 families around New York because he's an earner. He's a schemer. He figured things out. He also is a lot of people's enemies because he gets shot 6 separate times.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's out there
He
pissing
gets
people
shot a
off.
lot.
yeah, somebody's mad.
So, finally, somebody on the inside. I know what it was. One of his cohorts. Believe it or not, his name was Clemenza. He has a girlfriend. He gets her pregnant. She wants to have the baby. Will not have an abortion. He ends up kicking her down an apartment house stairs, like 5 flights.
Oh my God.
She doesn't lose the baby. Now he goes back and he slices her womb.
Shit.
She lives. She ain't telling nobody nothing. It finally got to the point that this guy got so hyper violent. She went to the detectives in 104th precinct.
Wow.
And they look at it. They're like, all right, this all leads to Vito. We're going after Vito. We're going to do a RICO and go get Vito. Because Vito had taken bodies. The detective in a 104 calls me. Actually questioned me on a homicide once when I was a kid. Johnny Wild, who's a homicide guy in a 104, calls me up. He goes, I know you were tight with Vito. You played football with him. I'm like, yeah, but that's where it ended, John.
Right.
He goes, yeah, but when he got pinched, he dropped your name. I'm like, I haven't seen him in years. Not since I became a cop.
Of course he did.
Well, what John wants me to do is sit down in the interrogation just to put him at ease and try and convince him to give it up.
Right.
I says, he's not giving it up. John's like, well, you know, he's looking at a lot of time. I'm like, he's not giving it up. I know this guy. There's rocks in his head, but there's honor in his heart. He's not giving it up. So we take our crack, and Vito, right across the table, looks at John. He looks at me. He goes, I like you guys. I respect you guys. But you never throw drama my way unless I got it coming. And you're always gentlemen about it. But you both got to know me by now. I ain't saying shit to the police. I'm like, okay, Vito. When you get settled, give me a commissary account. I'll send some money up.
Yeah.
So he ends up skating on this. They don't get to put that case together. Manhattan DA's office secretly picks it up, and they turn a couple of other informants, including Clemenza, and they end up indicting Vito for 6 murders.
Wow.
In Manhattan. It was the Rackets Bureau. Robert Morgenthau was the DA at the time. So Vito was going down for 6 murders, and they decide, all right, before we proffer him with his attorney, give him what's called the queen for a day to give up all the crime that he knows about for immunity. We'll let him stew in the pens overnight. So he stews in the pens overnight. He has a lawyer like Bruce Cutler, like John Gotti's lawyer, who's just not going to make it easy on the government. And they go in for the arraignment now in New York Supreme Court. And they think it's a formality. Nobody's going to plead guilty to 6 murders, right? Vito stands up and says, I did them all. The DA loses his mind. Wait a minute. He can't do that. We haven't proffered him yet.
He just
so
confessed.
Vito turns around and he goes, proffer your mother. He goes, come on, take me away. He's still in.
Wow.
He's still in. The whole purpose of them taking him down was they wanted him to give up John Jr. that he had some schemes going with. They were chasing a headline. So they were prepared to take this mass murderer, give him immunity like they did with Sammy the Bull, so that they could go get John Jr., who couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag and never killed anyone.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Was the killer.
A little nepotism there with that guy. Did you ever deal with this idiot John Alite?
John Alite. Who is that?
he's all over YouTube and everywhere else. He grew up with John Jr. He supposedly, killed 1 million people.
He talks out of his ass.
Yeah,
a
this
lot.
guy. If you didn't instantly see his face when I said his name,
You know,
probably don't
I
know
think
who he is.
you know what I think I know who you're talking about.
He's
and
not Italian. He was Chaldean, I think.
Yeah.
But he dresses the part. He still thinks
They
he's
all
a
do.
wise guy.
Yeah. You know what I know there's a couple of guys, former mobsters, who were killers, who actually were rats, which is why that they're out to do these podcasts.
Right.
Mhm.
But
Rat tube.
yeah, right now you're in. They should call it that. But yeah, a friend of mine that does podcasts, retired homicide sergeant, does the police off the cuff podcast. He's had a couple of these guys on, and he asked me if I wanted to come on. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
He's like, why not? I'm like, I know these people. They're shit. I'm not sitting in the same room with them.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, I respect it. He goes, but their ratings magic.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's I guess maybe honor's not the right thing to say, but my experience, and I guess there's some stats that back this up. If you have like a criminal organization that has a certain neighborhood, there's one where I grew up. It's arguably the safest part of Detroit. Like, because they're not letting shit happen in their neighborhood. They're not victimizing innocent people. They're handling their business, period, and nobody else is coming in.
That's in a perfect situation, though.
Right. But I mean, think about
Yeah,
the people I'm talking about. You don't
true.
hear them doing things.
No,
to
I
people.
know.
You know what I mean?
It's also not true.
Huh?
It's also not true. Here's the reason why. Your neighborhood with mafia people living in it seem to be safer than other neighborhoods. There's nobody to rob in that neighborhood. The thieves live there.
Right.
Well,
You got it?
Yeah.
And here's
Well,
the
yeah,
thing.
exactly.
If I go to rob them, they're criminals. They're going to fight back.
Right.
Right.
So what you did is you enjoyed a corollary effect of those people living there, keeping the riff-raff out, like the street criminals, because there's nothing for them to gain by going there.
Right.
However, what you need to know about the mafia is they have, in America, forever been selling poison in their own neighborhoods.
Right.
Joe Bonanno single-handedly ruined Bushwick by peddling heroin right out his front door.
Yeah.
Right.
And the whole thing about the mob not being involved in drugs,
That's bullshit.
mafia was created for drugs.
Yeah.
Well, there was like the pizza connection. There was like the
Pizza Connection I actually reimagined in my second novel, A Reckoning in Brooklyn.
Oh, no kidding?
Yeah.
Now you gotta respect the chin, right? Vincent Gigante.
No, he was mentally ill.
He pretended to be mentally ill.
No, he was mentally ill.
Well, you gotta be mentally ill to
You
pretend to
have
be
to
mentally
be mentally ill to fucking act like you.
Vin the Chin
doesn't.
Gigante, when his mind finally snapped and he was wandering around muttering to himself in a bathrobe, they left him in charge as a stalking horse. Under management of the Genovese crime family, who were making all the decisions while the FBI is listening to the phone calls of a guy who can't remember his own name.
Smart.
Yeah.
All right, I'm tired of talking about the fucking mafia. I'm gonna ask you a couple
I always
questions.
love talking about.
So anyway, so I read a lot of cases, books, constantly that are, some of the worst cases of things that people don't want to read. Some really dark things. People look at me like I'm nuts. Why would you want to read that? Why would you want to know that? But I do. I read them, and a lot of them are, child cases, and they're difficult, to discuss. But I read them and I research them, because I feel like somebody should hear these stories. I feel like, these are innocent victims that are, dying in vain. And I feel like someone should hear their stories, tell their stories, remember who they are, this, that, and the other. But my question is, did you deal with a lot of child cases, whether it be, abuse, neglect, death, this, that, and the other? And what was that like to have to deal with that?
Yeah, I had a bunch of kid cases. They're heartbreaking,
Right.
and in different ways too. Like the different cases, like a sex abuse case
Mm-hmm.
with a 6-year-old, and it's been going on for a year. Just the toll that takes to even hear that a member of your species is capable of this.
Right.
Right.
It wears you down in that respect. And hopefully we're resilient people and we come back from it. I like to think that I did, because I stuck around for another 25 years after my first one. I've had child murder cases. Sometimes they just catch a stray bullet,
Yeah.
and the heartbreak of that, and they were guilty of nothing but being 6 years old and living on a block where this kind of stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
Those, believe it or not, are actually, as homicides go, are sometimes easier to investigate because the witnesses want to tell you what happened.
Right.
You don't
Yeah.
have to force information out anymore. I've had, well, actually, I got a good story. Girl was 3 years old, and it was her christening party, and we had a Mexican section in Bushwick, and they were all hardworking people, but they worked from I think Jalisco in Mexico, and there were two big gangs there, and they seemed to come together on 2 blocks side by side off of Knickerbocker Avenue. Willoughby Avenue was where the big church hall was, where they used to have the quinceañeras and they used to have the christenings.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the joke was, who was the scariest man in Bushwick? The mailman on Willoughby, because he brings the invitations for the christenings. We called it a 1-in, 1-out rule. Somebody was getting shot and killed at one of those christenings.
Wow.
Mm.
Now, this particular case, the father knew all this and wanted to avoid putting his family into that position. So he has a thing in the apartment house, and basically all 3 floors are being used. It's really cool. Everybody they know and like, but it's a small circle of family and friends. One of the uncles of the little girl is, he's a gangbanger, but he's like a nothing gangbanger. They let him hang around.
Mm-hmm.
He comes to the christening and he gets completely drunk, starts waving his 25 around, and he drops it. And I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't have all the witnesses and the lab, the ballistics lab, confirming it could have happened. He dropped the gun, it went off, and it creased the little girl in the eye.
Oh, God.
I do this case like a murder because it's going to be a murder. She is likely to die. She has no chance, according to the surgeons in Bellevue. I'm like, all right, so it's a homicide. So everything I did, we treated it like a homicide because we believed it was going to be one. And everything was documented, videotaped, audio taped. It was one of the tightest homicides I had ever worked. And you have no, and in a case like that where a kid is the victim, you have nothing but help.
Mm-hmm.
Outside units, other detectives, everybody wants to get a piece of this because this is real. This is justice. So the case comes together, and we're just basically waiting. We already have the indictment for first-degree reckless endangerment, second-degree weapon, kind of stuff that's going to keep him and assault 1. So he's in for a lot of things, but we're waiting to get the superseding indictment for homicide. We're just waiting for the girl to pass.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what? I think I'm getting a runaround. I don't know what the story is with her condition. The DA asked me to go up to the hospital and speak to the attending physician. She had just opened her eyes for the first time out of the medically induced coma. She had lost her eye and lost a good piece of her brain, but it healed.
Wow.
She never
kidding.
died. I was invited and I attended her first communion.
Oh,
That's
my
great.
God. That's a miracle.
That's one with a damn happy ending.
Yeah,
You don't hear many of those.
that's beautiful.
You know.
Absolutely. I know we had, kind of discussed this on the phone when we talked the other day, but, what are your feelings towards, child predators as far as like, essay
You don't like them.
cases? I mean, obviously we know nobody likes them. I'm just saying, like, as a cop having to, deal with that, I can sit here and say how much I hate them and this, that, and the other, but as a cop, when you have to deal with cases like that, you have to interrogate these people, you've got to sit with these people, you've got to deal with them. What was that like? How difficult is that? And I mean, how do you even manage to do it, without just,
Yeah, in
what I'm
other words, like
saying?
how do you take your temperament and completely
It's
change
got to
it
take
that
a
way?
lot to be able to
It,
do
it
that.
is one of the most repugnant experiences you can go through. In order to interrogate somebody sick like that, you have to genuinely empathize with them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say genuinely, I'm lying.
Right,
False genuinely.
right. Yeah.
Right.
And you're trying to fish him telling you about the things that he did and why it's not his fault. Like, you got to give him an out. And the one they all go after, and it's sickening. How I managed not to put my fist through their skulls, I don't know. But automatically, she came on to me. She's 6. She came on to you.
Oh God.
Process that.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do that. I don't think I could do
Here's
that.
how I did
You're a
it.
bigger man
Here's
than me.
how I
I could
did
do
it.
that.
I caught my gag reflex, turned around, and I said, I don't know what it is with these kids. They're sexualized so young now. I see it all the time.
Wow.
Man, hats
taste
off
the-
to you
I can
for
taste
having
the
to
little
do
vomit
that,
in my
because
throat now.
that's hard.
That's how you have to interrogate them. You have to let them believe that you're their only friend,
Right.
and then
Did
you're
you
going to
ever
make it
run-
all okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever deal with any serials or anyone like that? Like that?
Yeah, I worked on a couple down in Brooklyn, but they're never as sexy as TV makes it sound.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much we had drug addicted prostitutes on the border of the 8-3 and the 9-0, and they were being raped and murdered and ritually kind of posed where they were found.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
But nothing sophisticated, nothing you could say, okay, that's a signature.
Yeah.
It's not really a signature. It just, they weren't smart. They were in areas that no one ever goes
Mm-hmm.
unless you're looking for a $10 heater.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a contained community. The guy managed to do, I think, 4. And we finally got on to him. But part of the problem is we had some red herrings. People were calling in tips that it was a Hasidic kid from Crown Heights. Yeah,
Oh.
That would have been now, see, that would be interesting.
well, it would be interesting. And the reason why it was originally thought plausible by us is the Hasidic kids do frequent prostitutes in the street.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean,
Makes sense.
It wasn't a rare thing,
kind of. Sometimes they're pushed into doing.
But in any event, we go chasing this kid, and it turns out it's a rival rabbi's grandson.
Huh.
And the call came in from the other rabbi's camp, basically looking to make trouble with the other rabbi because they think there was going to be an election.
Huh.
So we wasted 2 weeks chasing the Phantom Hasid.
Oh
And in the meantime, 2 other girls end up getting killed.
man.
Now that guy should face charges for a false tip.
Oh Lord.
He actually got banished from the community.
Good.
Oh, no kidding.
Good.
Yeah, they have their own courts, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was sent walking. He's not a rabbi anymore. And the Lubavitchers are very, very strict.
Mhm.
You'd rather get caught by the police than by the Lubavitchers.
Wow, no kidding.
I just
They're not
watched
gonna
a
leave
whole
much for the
special
police
on
to
that
take to
recently.
jail.
Yeah, I was kind of mind blown. Like, whoa. All right, they're rigid over there.
But in
Yeah,
any event, what it is, once we got onto this guy and we started to get people to describe suspicious behavior, it got to the point where he had warrants. Let's bring him in and see what he has to say. Eventually, we'll get the DNA off him, and that'll wrap this up. And
Yeah.
he'll be in custody until we get the DNA back, so nobody else can get killed.
Mm-hmm.
So we hook him up, we'll grab him off of Hooper Street, and we bring him into the 83rd precinct for the interrogation. And 2 other detectives from Brooklyn North Homicide handled it. Shit, I forgot Vidge's name. Vigiano is his last name. He was a first grade detective in homicide. He was brilliant. And his partner was a girl that I came on the academy with, Jean Valentine, who was a terrific detective. because this is at the beginning when DNA, like we didn't know as much about DNA as we do now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Jeannie and Tony Vigiani. Jeannie and Tony are leading the guy in the front doors of the 83rd precinct, and he stops and he whips up a clam and spits it on the sidewalk.
Ah.
And Jeannie is like, "You got him. This is a crime scene." She covered the spittle with a Solo cup and put the guard over it until they guarded and roped off the scene. And then crime scene came and they collected the spit for DNA analysis.
Wow.
We had a hit in 5 days.
Huh.
No kidding.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, those
detective
cases
work.
are getting boring on TV. It's like, just like in Great Britain, it's always CCTV.
Yeah, CCTV
They just got it all on camera. And
catches everything.
like, but isn't it still an overwhelming amount of cases, murder cases, any kind of major cases, solved more by the actual police work, the confession, the interrogation, more than science? Aren't they usually more circumstantial or confession than science?
You're usually going to have your suspect in the box interrogating him before you have any DNA hits.
Right.
So yeah, it's the shoe leather investigations that work.
Yeah, I mean, without that, I mean, you can't just rely on only DNA.
Yeah, because I think.
And then the other thing, that's actually another subculture within New York City detectives. Not everybody can get a confession.
Right. Oh, I bet.
There are some tremendous detectives that will just sit by and let someone like me do the interrogation for them because they just don't know how to elicit information from someone who isn't motivated to give it.
Yeah.
It's
kind of an art.
It's a skill.
I was going to say that. A lot of people call it a process, but if it were a process, everyone could do it.
Right. It's a skill, definitely.
Well, you got to be able to read people, and you got to see where's their weak button. How do I push it?
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a creativity involved because each person is different. You don't know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Sometimes you think you got a guy that's going to stretch it out for 24 hours, and he's crying and within 13 seconds telling you all about it.
Right.
Wow, I did not expect that from Mike Tyson's lookalike.
Right. We should get into the writing part.
Come here.
Did you always, when you're a cop, whether it was when you were a cop and then a detective, did you ever have any idea that you were going to write? Whether it was about...
I knew I was going to be a writer. From the time I was in 7th grade, I've been writing.
Yeah.
And the reason it took me until 7th grade is my 7th grade English teacher at Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal was named Miss Wintergurst. I was in love with her. Every word that came out of her mouth was gold. And she taught this creative writing class. Interestingly enough, Anne is now Dr. Wintergurst, and she heads the English department at St. John's University.
Oh.
No kidding.
She wrote a great review of my first novel.
Awesome.
That's great. So you always knew in the back of your mind.
Well, I'm Irish. We're natural storytellers.
Yeah, that's true.
So now you tell me I can take a sheet of paper and I can create people out of whole cloth and narratives and go anywhere I want with it. It was a natural fit. I enjoyed it, and it was my first experience with it. And then when I went to high school, I went to a pretty prestigious academic school, St. Francis Prep in Queens, which great in football too, by the way. I wrote there. I mean, they had student magazines, they had poetry journals, they had the school newspaper. So I was submitting stuff all the time, and I liked it. I liked doing it. I liked the reward of people recognizing it. Holy shit, I didn't even know you were literate. Things like that. And then I wrote through college. I actually had a couple of one-act plays produced. I had, so I wrote. I mean, I enjoyed writing. I didn't know I had a novel in me. I didn't understand exactly what the process was of writing one. But for the most part, once my police career started, my only writing was pretty much investigative reports, which I wrote different than other detectives. It used to drive my bosses crazy. I tell myself narrative stories.
Huh.
So now when I go to trial 2 years from now, I can sit up on the stand and not even have to look at my case folder. Because I told myself a story and I remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I had a lieutenant who was like screaming. He goes, why do I need a thesaurus and a dictionary when I'm reading your DD5s, which DD5s are the investigative reports.
I just
I'm
learned
like,
that in
well,
the first book.
I learned it
yes,
from
actually, that's exactly it. So,
Yeah, I'm let's see. I think I'm like 16 chapters in almost of the first book in the Paddy series. And yeah, I'm liking it so far. Honestly, it's taken me a little while to get into it as quick as I usually get into most books, only because I just finished like an 8-book series that I was like, so now I'm in like the grieving process. Like mourning
the
these
feeling.
characters that have been a part of my life for like several months, like when your favorite show goes off the air. But yeah, I'm starting to like it quite a bit, and I feel like some of Paddy's explosions, I relate a little bit to his anger. So yeah, I was like,
she's an angry person.
I'm like, I like this dude.
All right, a little backstory. Despite the fact that it's a novel,
Yeah,
all of the police work is genuine.
right. I figured.
And I changed the profession of Paddy's wife. She's a nurse in the book.
Okay, gotcha.
But for the most part, my birth name is Paddy Durr.
Okay.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Well, good to know.
Yeah, well, in any event, so when it came time to write the novel, I'm like, all right, for now, it was working name is Paddy Durr.
So you see the character's pretty self-aware. Like
yeah, right.
Yeah, he's a lot closer to the creator.
Gotcha.
Than most readers know.
Yeah, I mean, I was like about to put it down for 1 second, and then there was that part where I don't know, that cop, I can't remember his name, but a cop he clearly did not like whatsoever, and he walked up the stairs and he just beat the freaking shit out of him and kept walking right out the building. And I was like, all right, I like
now
this.
we know that probably actually happened.
Did you get to why Paddy gave that fat cop a beating in the hallway?
What's that?
Did you get to the part in the book that explains why?
Not yet, no. So
right.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm very much looking forward
I've actually had a couple of reviewers that wrote 1-star reviews for me and admitted that they stopped reading at that point.
What?
Yeah. They were sickened by the description of violence, I guess.
You don't want them to touch a Stephen King novel, then. Jesus Christ. They get 4 pages in and be done.
And then I was reading about you guys interrogating like Elephant Boy, and I'm just like sitting there laughing my ass off at how he's treated, and then finding out why he's treated like that. I was like, yes. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be finishing that one probably within the next couple days.
I was an author my whole life, or a writer my whole life, and I still have a book that I just haven't actually put out there anywhere. It's a novel. And the reason I always got away from it, because I just didn't see a way to make money from it, and I had to be realistic, and it's always on the back burner. But if I could do anything out of all the stuff I do creatively, it would be that. My kids could see I'm a published author. You know, I believe the story's great, and the people that have
they're not that impressed with that, by the way, your kids.
Huh?
The kids aren't that impressed with the.
No,
they're never impressed with much of anything.
Don't ruin the dream. They're not impressed with the fish I catch either. None of that. But leading up to it, that's what keeps you writing it.
Right, the idea.
But I mean, did you? I talked to you briefly about this and I listened to the interview about it actually when you were with Maxwell on Cruise Control.
Yeah.
It's tough to make it, and despite the we're talking about the political stuff that goes into it right now, but when you first started writing, it's just very difficult to make a living off of it, isn't it? It's damn near impossible.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have been able to make a living on it. I'm not making a living on it yet now. Thank God for my pension. What do you keeps would be starving? The problem is there are only, I think they're down to 4 major publishers. And it's an antiquated, almost labyrinthine process to get your stuff in front of agents who are the gatekeepers for the publishing houses and the acquiring editors. And then consider how difficult that is with all of the people that are querying for traditional publication. How much shit is in that slush pot, and how much attention they can give to each one. So it's difficult just getting in front of eyes.
Yeah.
To begin with. Now factor that. Add in the fact that most of the publishing money is going to people like Nancy Prince Harry. Oh, here's a good one.
Obama.
Well, Obama, I'm sure you know what? He probably wrote the book.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I guarantee you that Biden's kid didn't write.
No, God, no.
He didn't write a book. He didn't write a book. But if you look at the deals that these people are getting, and it's not a good look for me going forward, because with this business model, traditional publishing is going out of business because nobody buys those books.
Yeah.
It's just like the music industry. It's the same as the music industry,
yeah,
basically.
exactly. Those books are trash. So it's like, you know, I mean,
I gotta be honest with you. I stopped downloading and listening to new music in 2015.
I don't blame you.
Once that Skrillex shit came out, I'm done.
Skrillex. That's funny.
I worked in that scene for many years, so I totally understand your feelings there.
I was a hip hop artist for a lot of years and a promoter, and I kind of got, I don't want to call it excommunicated, but they didn't like that I became a bit patriotic in my music.
Yeah, they didn't like
it. Doesn't work with hip hop. Oh, that's something I wanted to ask you. Did you see a lot of the hip hop culture? Meaning, like, you were there when New York exploded, the hip hop culture. Did you have dealings or run into any of these guys, big names in hip hop? Any of these legendary guys?
I worked on the homicide where Busta Rhymes' I guess driver got killed.
In a yeah, it has something to do with the truck. It got drive by or something.
Busta knows who killed his buddy, and he never gave it up.
Yeah. Okay.
Plus, the victim's family knew who did it and never gave it up.
Wow.
Busta turns around and sends that family for 3 days to Disney World. That's the last penny they saw from him.
Wow.
And the guy died protecting Busta. And Busta, by the way, was a confrontational, loudmouth piece of shit.
Really?
I can imagine he might have been.
He did not behave.
Yeah, he's on TRT.
Yeah.
No, he was one of the entertainers that came up positive, or they found out was on growth hormone and testosterone and all kinds of shit. Remember, he got all muscular.
He did get all big.
Him, Dr. Dre, the Timberland. They all went from chubby little guy, you know.
Yeah, real quick.
So that might have been why. You know? But yeah, that was over 50
The reason why they all got into fitness is because LL Cool J.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's wearing the LL shirt right now.
But he's a legitimate athlete.
Yeah.
No, he is. Yeah.
And he did it with diet, and he did it with training. He actually trained with one of my partners at a gym on Long Island.
Oh, cool.
And now these guys come along, and he's like, "Yeah, this is what you got to do: work." And I'm going to the needle.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Always the easy way. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, but I'm not against guys getting like TRT or something when they're my age or older and their testosterone is low and making them depressed, and it's making them sick and weak, and you know.
Well,
we've talked about that.
That's the whole fitness thing, though.
Right.
It depends on what you're using.
Well, it's a quality of life.
It's actually a quality of life thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's like we can actually sit there and get our blood taken and see. Okay, well, here's where our life starts going downhill. Here's how bad it's probably going to get.
Right. Here's what can help.
Yeah, maybe I can fix that. But see, guys, these clinics, though, I've looked into a few of them. They give you these questionnaires. Because when I first got into training again, I thought about doing this because it sounded safe, sounded great. You do a questionnaire and it asks you questions like, do you have less sex drive than when you were 20? Do you have less energy than when you were 20? So in other words, everybody qualifies.
Right.
So it's not real doctoring. It's not real medical anything.
Actually, those mills, they get locked up over time because that is an abuse.
Right.
It is going to happen where they're just not going to be allowed to exist anymore.
I'm surprised.
The proper way that TRT is being dispensed is through urologists. Who do the blood work and they do the screening. And here's the other thing: your insurance, your medical insurance, is not picking up TRT unless your total testosterone is under 300. That's old lady low.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's got to be pretty low to get the prescription.
Yeah.
And then once you get on, every 3 months you're going back for more blood work, and you and the doctor are figuring out how to.
That's the right way to do it.
Right. Yeah.
It's just a scary thing when you.
And the thing about it is, when you finally get to the point where your T is that low, you're not competing in sports anyway, so you're not a juice.
Right. Exactly.
That's what I mean by quality of
Go
life.
have a happy life. Go get fixed.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Exactly.
I agree.
So you didn't have to deal with too much. You and I were talking about this where I said I feel like a lot of police officers, it's kind of like being in the street on the other side of things. You see a lot of things that you try not to bring home. But like you said, your wife's a cop. So you didn't really have that weird dynamic where you got to keep your mouth shut about what you're experiencing. She already knows.
We simplified it. When my kids were born, my wife was a pretty terrific cop, but once she got pregnant with my son, she's like, all right, we can only have one Elliot Ness in the family, and it's you. Which I was making arrests in overtime. You know, she wasn't the active cop that I was.
Yeah.
Good cop. She wasn't the active cop. So pretty much that was the end of her enforcement career. She went inside. She started doing like statistics work. You know, for the captain, but it's police work. Somebody, you know, cop has to do it. But
right.
It was understood when I came home that I was catching bad guys.
Yeah.
Right.
So my kids would be, did you catch the bad guy, Daddy? No, but I'm getting close. I'm getting close.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I got the bad guy today. And the thing about it is, when you work in homicide cases and you get the bad guy, you're not going home for 4 days.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's around the clock type
stuck
of
doing everything. Yeah.
Yeah. My God, that's got to be so exhausting. I can't even imagine. Like all of the. That's why it does upset me to see the lack of respect for police, not just because of all the societal bullshit that everyone is eating like freaking or drinking like Kool-Aid over all the bullshit that's going on, but just for the fact that, I mean, my God, especially homicide police, the amount of work that goes into that, the amount of time you're away from your family, the, lack of sleep, the just constant go
talk about dealing with assholes.
To solve these cases, putting your life in danger, I mean, dealing with constant chaos and
negativity,
bullshit.
Yeah.
Like that is not a lot of people can do that job, that is so difficult. So I give mad respect where it's due to police officers, because that is, without that, who would we have that's out there to get the justice, to get the people that, killed my family or whatever, Then people want to scream defund the police, and it's like, okay, well, who are you going to call when your little cousin gets shot down the street? You want justice for them, right? You got to call police, right? It's just, it drives me nuts. It really drives me nuts.
I see a lot of, I think you brought it up. Isn't there like a really higher instance of like divorce and infidelity and stuff with cops as far as in their marriages and stuff like that? Is there a reason that you ever picked up on for that? Is it just the fact that you're always gone? Is that pretty much it?
That's part of it. It changes you as a person.
Right.
Just because your bullshit filter just gets so good it catches everything. So you don't have time for bullshit. Well, say your wife is a teacher. She's not a cop. Her life is bullshit. She's got nothing but time for it. You're not really the right people to be talking to each other anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, that'd be hard.
It's almost like two alien existences.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in a whole different world, basically, is what it
Yeah,
comes
it's
down
almost
to.
like living a double life, even if you're not doing anything, like you're not stepping out or whatever. It's still like a double life if you're having to live this at home or at, your job, and you come home and you can't, even like relate whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be really difficult.
See, what was nice is my wife and I became cops at the same time. When I got dark, she got dark with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
I
was,
just sometimes wish I lived in that bubble where I didn't see the darkness that's out here. I didn't see how manipulative and conniving and greedy and I wish
See,
I was one of those people that didn't see that,
see,
but I see it
sometimes
everywhere.
I feel like sometimes
I have a
wish
remedy, though.
that I wasn't one of those people, but at the same time, I have a lot of people that tell me that, oh, well, like you read these cases, you look at this, you think this way, blah, blah, blah. You're too negative, you're too this, you're too that. And I'm just like, well, I kind of, as dark as a lot of things are in the world, I would rather know about them, be educated about them, know the truth of things, and just know. I would rather know than not know. I don't
feel
want to
like
be ignorant.
if you're
to it.
intelligent, it probably makes you appreciate your family more
I don't want to be
and
ignorant
your
to
normalcy
the
more.
darkness.
You come home probably. Did you come home sometimes and just kind of exhale like, okay, this is my normalcy
Right.
that I've earned? You know what I mean? Was there like a relief when you got home and saw some semblance of order, basically?
To be honest, just to drive home on your way going home, you knew you were
Yeah.
coming back to something that was pure and beautiful.
Right.
And it made the rest of it endurable. But see, that's the other aspect. You see all the evil in the world. But if you're thinking about it, you understand that has to exist. So beauty, dignity, and nobility, we wouldn't know what it was.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you can find that if you look.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And hopefully you find enough of it that it cancels out that.
Yeah.
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 As a DMX, you don't know pleasure without the pain.
That's what it comes down to. Is like, you can't have one without the other. So, they have to both exist.
That's what I mean. Like I would appreciate more when I was, in bad situations and I'd come home. It was kind of like, all right, I see why I go through this. Shit, with a regular horrible job now, I'm like, okay, I see why I'm doing this.
Right.
Most of the time.
I'll tell you what, I just remember the one time my kids were affected. They were pretty small. After 9/11, I had to actually go get my mother and have her move in with us to watch the kids, because Janet and I were going to work for 12-hour shifts, and then I was doing 4 hours down on the pile digging. And this went on pretty much for the first month, doing a 12-hour detective shift, 4 hours digging down in the down on the pile. And then maybe I get 4 hours sleep before I'd have to run back and start again. And that went on for a month for the both of us.
Wow.
We saw each other. If we saw each other at all, it was passing and passing. I mean, we were both home with the kids at separate times. So they were reading our anxiety. And they got very serious.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they've ever lost that seriousness.
Yeah, that's like a piece of innocence kind of going away, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah, it is.
Well, if you think about it, when you're little and mom and dad, I mean, they're your heroes, they're police officers, they're going to protect you from anything. And then all of a sudden you discover they're scared. There's something that they can't protect us from.
Yeah.
No.
So I think once that's gone, that unreality, that mom and dad are always going to make everything okay. Nothing can hurt me. I don't think you ever get it back. Like you called it a loss of innocence. I guess it's that.
Right.
Nowadays it's like our country hates itself. The people here hate it. I can't believe that someone hasn't come in and taken advantage of that when all of your people essentially hate the nation they're supposed to stand behind. That's crazy. Like I've never seen such dissension in a country.
Yeah.
Well, not a first world one.
Part of the problem is you're getting a myopic view of it. You're getting what the government and the media want you to see.
Yeah.
These people are the loudest and they have the biggest platform, but they do not represent the majority of Americans. They
Right.
don't.
All right.
Because I think I noticed that I may be wrong, my perception on this, but was there a point in time where it seems like the police as a whole, like maybe the union, kind of switched parties? Because I seem to remember when I was younger, it seems like the Democratic Party was kind of aligned with the police union like they are with the teachers now.
Yeah.
But now the cops are the ones that are more outspoken on the conservative. Did that happen at some point?
Yeah, when Obama became the first, started the first war on the police.
Okay.
Him and that criminal Department of Justice head, Attorney
Yeah.
General. Yeah. Once that happened and stuff started to roll downhill, the unions, out of self-preservation, said these people don't represent us.
Mm-hmm.
So they started leaning to the right.
Yeah, it seems
And-
like the thing that in my mind anyway that changed a lot of things was when those cops got murdered. I think it was Dallas, maybe it was in Texas. 5
Yeah.
cops I think got
That
killed.
was in Dallas. It was the 5
Dallas,
cops.
right.
Yeah, and he came out and spoke, and rather than talking about these officers and what happened, and he talked about racism against people, and that he basically made it feel like
He
that's
didn't
what
even
he was.
acknowledge the victims.
He was almost
really.
like victim blaming. He's basically what he was doing.
He justified the death of 5 police officers.
Mhm.
And now, if
That's
you bring
what
this
he
up
did.
to people, they don't even realize that 5 cops died.
Yeah, a
It's
lot
a-
of people don't know. It's
They're
insane.
like, oh yeah, the cops that got shot. No. They got killed. They got murdered.
Right.
And so yeah, I could see the Obama thing. A lot of people, because he spoke very eloquently. He spun a good yarn. He held himself well.
It's easy to manipulate
He
that way.
manipulated the hell out of people.
All good cult leaders are,
Yeah, he's a cult
charismatic.
leader. He's
The
definitely a
last
cult leader.
time the police union supported the mayor, like completely supported the mayor when he was a Democratic mayor, was under Ed Koch.
Okay.
That was
That was when I first got
80,
sworn
yeah.
into the department. Ed Koch was my mayor, and he was pro law enforcement. He loved his cops. Loved his cops. Wanted to pay us more than he was able to. It was partly the ineptitude of the unions that we didn't get the raises we deserved, but whatever. Everybody loved Ed Koch. All the cops, the rank and file, loved him. And then the next guy that came in was David Dinkins. And it all started going south. And it went all the way south. It took Giuliani to basically create a revolution in New York. It became a safe place again. Business came back. Tax revenue went way up. Unfortunately,
Giuliani seemed to have worked a miracle, and that from what statistically,
well, yeah, it was a miracle in that you had a modern city government that invoked common sense solutions.
yeah,
Not virtue signaling, it's law enforcement. So Giuliani did what he did for 2 terms. The next guy that came in was Mike Bloomberg, and he looked at the template that Giuliani left and said, "Yep, crime's the #1 issue. Make the city safe, the people will come."
Yeah.
The problem is the people who came, we called them urban pioneers. They gentrified all the neighborhoods, and they were poor neighborhoods. But along the subway lines, because they were one stop to Manhattan. And now they're here and they're voting. And they're electing people like Eric Adams. And they're electing people like Bill de Blasio.
Yeah.
And until we fix that, New York's dead. We are the next Detroit.
Yeah.
I was just going to say Detroit has been trying to do that for years. They gentrify these little areas, and it brings a certain group of people in that vote honestly against their own needs, against their own, it doesn't make any sense. And you watch it happen almost every major city, and still it just continues. It's like some sort of
frustrates the
cancer that spreads from major city to major city.
Yeah.
We're moving near Asheville, and great booming city, right? But thank God we're in the country, a half hour outside of it, because I just found out the politics there.
Yeah, we're not too fond of it.
No. But New York and LA used to be, I was in entertainment, so it's like those places were like
It's the
Mecca to me.
Yeah.
But I don't want to set foot in either one of them now.
Yeah, no, me either.
I don't want to go anywhere near. No.
You were visiting when you came to New York. You were visiting shrines that I considered my hangout.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was a punk rock. I was a punk rock guy during the punk rock era.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool.
I think I was 14 at the time. I had the big Joe Strummer mohawk all the way down the back of my head, and
Sweet.
I think it might have been a Richard Hell show. Richard Hell and the Voidoids
Okay.
at CBGB's.
Oh, see,
CBG.
I was gonna ask about CBGBs when you said punk rock. I was like, no shit.
Oh, the place was outrageous. I was there. I should have been allowed in the door, but I was there pretty much till the time that they closed. It was disgusting, but it was awesome. So anyway, it's kind of astonishing to me. They encourage stage diving at CBGB's.
Huh.
But the thing about it is the ceilings and the air ducts are all painted black, and they're low to the stage.
Oh.
I got too much lift.
Oh,
And I
damn.
split the back of my head open for 26 stitches.
Oh.
Oh, God.
Well,
That
But
would
I
be
didn't know.
something I
I
would
wanted
do.
to
That's
I wanted
a
to
no,
stay in that.
yeah.
They didn't call it the mosh pit back then. They called it slam dancing. But I wanted to stay
I
and
remember
bang
the term
around
slam
in
dancing.
the pit. And it was only because it was bleeding all over everybody that the bouncers grabbed me and said, "You got to go to the hospital."
That's a scary thought, though.
Hey, good memories, though. Good memories. Good
It
times.
just reminds me of my toe. I'm over here in pain. Oh, I got a funny one. Okay, I'm horrible with names, but I'm sure you'll know who I'm talking about. There was a female cop recently
Oh, yeah, here we go.
who got involved with everybody on the force, essentially.
You know, there was a time when stuff like that went on all the time in the precincts.
Really?
Nobody said shit.
Right.
I mean, in
No,
all
with
honesty,
respect to her, I mean, she was taking on the whole platoon. That's a little out of the ordinary. But
she's suing now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
now
know.
she's suing.
Yeah, what do you think of her?
Well, here's what I think. I think they never should have fired her. And the reason being is the day that they fired her, morale in the police department went into the toilet there.
Yeah.
That was a joke.
No, I'm totally.
It didn't work.
sitting here-
It didn't
I'm
work.
trying not to
Like-
laugh because you're sitting here, and I'm like, yeah, my day would, lack of a better term, suck less. If I... No, I just thought that was a funny thing, and I figure you'd say that stuff like that had happened because I have friends in the military,
Yeah.
and they said it was, not a case like she's trying to make it with the suing thing where she's saying, "Oh, I was pressured," even though they got the text messages and all this. Where it was just more like, no, women have an appetite too, and like attention too. If you were when I was younger, if you stuck me in a boat with like 100 attractive women and they're all interested,
Well, yeah.
stuff's gonna happen.
It is just.
Well, with respect to her suing, we live in an age now where you can declare yourself a victim and tell lies about it because the case is going to go forward in civil court.
Right.
And entities like police departments and cities in the Carolinas, they're going to be motivated to pay off the person to go away, and they call that "fuck you" money.
Right.
And the negotiation takes place between the lawyers, like, all right, how much is a fuck you? Problem is to litigate a lawsuit as a defendant is expensive.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
a long process. It's expensive. The other aspect of it is the level of proof in civil court differs from criminal court in that you only need to present as a plaintiff a preponderance of evidence that your claim has merit.
It's like the OJ thing.
Well, kind of. OJ, that was just a terrible prosecution. And also a jury that I think was on drugs.
Yeah, I think
Probably.
so too.
But then the other aspect of it is, if you look at civil juries, there are 12 people who weren't smart enough to get out of jury duty.
Yeah.
You want
I've
that
always
man
gotten
in
out.
decision?
Me too.
Yeah. So, cities and towns and whatnot, when they're faced with these kinds of lawsuits, they're like, we're taking a real gamble going to court. Even though she has no merit in her case, let's throw 6 figures and she'll go the fuck away.
Yeah.
Wow, this woman's probably gonna get paid.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Well,
that's
at least she got paid for all her, voluntary work she did.
voluntary work.
her extra,
Volunteer work, you mean?
her extracurriculars.
Well, I had to ask, how many more did you finish the series with Paddy, or is that?
I actually have an unpublished Paddy Durr novel
Okay.
that I'm probably when I get a bite on the novel that I'm pitching now to agents, I want to see if I can get a 3-book deal with a publishing house, and it'll come out that way. I'm thinking of taking the series and continuing it with Paddy's son Patrick,
Oh, that'll be
Gotcha,
cool.
okay.
who's an anti-crime cop in the 7-5, and
Okay.
I have a title and I have an idea on a plot, but I'm calling it The Last Unprotected Species.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
I like it.
Yeah, because I'd heard you telling those guys that it's funny because everybody nowadays says, yeah, go do it yourself, go self-publish, you'll do so good, it's so easy. And from what you're saying, it's not easy, and from what the little digging I've done into it, it's not very easy.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? It's a lot of work because you're doing everything yourself.
Right.
And it's money out of your pocket trying to promote a book that you don't really understand how best to do it. So you're taking chances and you're losing some of your bets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's advertising. There are other things that you have to do to try and get people to review your book. Big thing that I do, and most of my sales come from me going to book fairs, setting up my tent and selling. People want to talk to the author. And I spent some money on like the background of my tent and whatnot.
And you're having to travel a lot. That's not something, that.
It's not that much travel. I only go locally.
Oh, okay.
Like I'll do the Brooklyn Book Fair, for instance. I'll do a lot of these street fairs and book fairs on Long Island. But the thing about it is I make good money selling the books.
Mm-hmm.
And they're expensive. They're more expensive buying them from me with my signature than for you to buy them and have them delivered to your door by Amazon.
Yeah.
Right.
But people want the signed book from the author.
Oh,
Just
absolutely.
like some people want a physical CD.
I
You know,
mean,
like-
I would much rather have a physical book than the Kindle. I do both. I have a whole stack of physical books, and then I've got the Kindle too because it's easy to read when everyone's asleep, and I don't have to have the reading light on and
But
other
nothing
stuff.
beats actually
But
holding the
nothing
book.
beats holding the book. And if I have the chance to get the actual book and have it signed by the author, hell yeah, I'll pay more for that.
Oh, I was going to suggest the book to him.
Oh,
This will have to go on Rumble.
Uh-oh.
Nice.
Oh, no, I know what book you're talking about. It's probably all dusty. You better wipe it off. You're going to show it on the camera. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I wanted to ask him about Lee Child too.
Okay.
It's I don't know if you can see it
Did
though.
you dust it off?
It's got a little dust on it. This is a book by Dr. Joseph Mercola and Ronnie Cummins with a foreword by Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
What is it called?
It's called The Truth About COVID-19, Exposing the Great Reset, Lockdowns, Vaccine Passports, and the New Normal.
And we will have to edit
It's great.
that part out.
Yeah, it's
of
absolutely
YouTube.
great. I had to put
But
that in there.
Rumble can have it.
No, but I wanted to ask you, have you ever read any Lee Child, the Jack Reacher series? Any of Lee
Yeah,
Child?
I love Lee Child. He's I love him. I read Lee Child. I read Nelson DeMille. I find myself going back to the classics. I have the complete short stories of Ernest Hemingway in the bathroom over
good
here.
Oh, wow,
books,
okay.
good books.
Yeah, the Lee Child thing I asked about just because of the recurring character of Jack Reacher. And
Right.
man, those books are, I don't know. I keep telling her, maybe it is more of a guy thing, whatever, but the Reacher books are amazing to me.
No,
I can't stop
like
reading.
the character of Jack Reacher. Just I have like a very specific, I don't know. I look for very specific books. I read a lot of nonfiction, and I only just started reading books that are like basically fiction but based in truth. So, yeah. But I do like the Jack Reacher character. I think it is pretty amazing. So
Yeah, he
I'm
does
not
a lot of
opposed
work knowing
to reading it.
the
I just
actual
haven't yet.
inner workings of the military and all that kind of stuff. And he's not. from here.
Yeah.
He's been doing this a while. I don't know if you read the first Jack Reacher book.
Yeah, I've read all but one. The most
The
recent.
dialogue is awkward. The sentence structure is awkward. You know that it's a displaced British guy trying to write American crime fiction.
Oh yeah, it got smoother as it went.
Like he actually removed all the profanity from his books going forward, but it was just so awkward. Like him trying to speak the profanity, and I'm like, people don't talk like that, bro.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like maybe I let it go at first.
I stuck with the series. You can tell that he picks these settings and he goes there and he researches them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The way he
puts the work in, for
describes
sure.
physical settings, he's brilliant.
What did you think of Tom Cruise playing Jack Reacher?
Only because I knew that he was supposed to be a great big dude. Like if you gave that character a different name than Reacher, I could deal with it.
Right.
Right. Fighting skills.
Yeah.
And pretty much in the fighting scenes, you know, unlike Reacher throwing people through walls, Tom Cruise is actually taking out knees. He's showing fighting skills.
It's more
Yeah.
realistic.
His size could get away with.
Right. The dude
But
in the series, though, is
knowing that
guy.
Reacher's supposed to be this great big blonde 6'7"
Yeah.
killing
Yeah.
machine. No, sorry, Tom. You're too precious.
Right. You don't
Well, the
pass
funny,
the
you
bar.
probably know this, but Tom basically bought out the rights of the movie making of the series because he loved the character so much and wanted to play him.
But just for the first two movies,
Oh,
Lee
so it's
Child
only-
owns the rest.
And now, who did that series, the show that we were watching?
Yeah, this is a Jack Reacher series. That dude's a beast.
And that
plays
guy
him on
that
there.
plays Reacher is a big, tall, blonde dude, and he's a big guy.
Yeah, the reason why is that Lee Child owns the rights now.
Okay.
Okay.
He's the executive producer for that series,
Gotcha. That makes sense.
and he casted that kid.
Yeah,
but the
he
Tom
did
Cruise
well.
movies weren't terrible though. They're actually, like you said, like it's
No, they were good movies.
it was passable.
Yeah.
But like I said, because I'd read the books,
Makes it
there was
hard,
that
yeah.
part there where it's kind of like, okay, this isn't that believable to me.
Well,
I have to
yeah.
look at this like I'm someone else
That
watching
character
this.
becomes your friend. You picture him, you
Mhm.
see him, you know, every time you're reading. So then you see this guy, it's like, this is nothing like what's
Right.
described.
You
in the
mentioned
picture.
Mario Puzo earlier, and I had mentioned to her that I was impressed with Mario Puzo because he'd have a 350-page book that covered 4 generations of a mafia family. Most simple writing style I could possibly imagine. I could finish the book in an afternoon, but somehow it's still a great book. It's still detailed enough. It still shows me enough in my mind without being overly complex. I could almost give Micah, our 8-year-old, that book, and he would understand it. Did you ever notice that about his writing? It's kind of impressive to me.
Well, one of the reasons why he's absolutely get to the point and use fewest words possible is he began as a screenwriter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So when he
I
goes
read
into
that
descriptions, it's actually a weakness in his writing. Like when he's describing, for instance, Waltz's mansion, that ornate thing, that palace in Hollywood, that Tom
Yeah.
Hagen goes to sit down with him. In the novel, he takes care of the description of that building in 2 sentences. That's
Yeah.
not enough.
Right, yeah.
But the dialogue is so strong.
Yeah, see, maybe that's what it is,
Always
the dialogue.
appropriate to the character. It's just, you know, I mean, there are different ways to be brilliant. He's brilliant in a sparse way. Steinbeck used to write like that.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, you can do it in a flowery way. Now you're writing like Hemingway or Fitzgerald,
Mm-hmm.
where, you know what, 13 words weren't necessary, but they're good ones. So, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I grew up reading like a lot of Stephen King and stuff like that, so I got overly descriptive in my writing style. And so when I read somebody like Puzo, I'm kind of like in awe. I need to get more like that. I don't want to bore the living shit out of people.
Yeah.
I want the average person to be able to read my book. You know?
I review every single book that I read on Kindle and when I buy them too. If I order them on Amazon.
Her
I
reviews
review
are
them.
a book. They are. I've
You
seen
should actually look into
Yeah. Well, yeah, I review
you should
every
get a
single
blog
book.
page that reviews books. You'll get them
I'll
free.
definitely be reviewing, you know, yours when I'm done with it, and it'll be kind of cool to, you know, add into the review like, hey, I've actually talked to this dude, so ha.
Total dick, but a great book. Kind of like I say about my dad. I can't stand the bastard, but he's a great guitarist. It gives him more credit as a guitarist. They're like,
Yeah.
hey, you don't even fucking like him.
No, that'll add a little more oomph to the review, so that'll be cool.
Right.
I had a kid in the gym call me Mr. O'Keefe. Most of the football players that I coach, that I have coached over the years here in Farmingdale, they end up in the same gym, and sometimes I'm Coach O'Keefe, but if it's not football season for some reason, some of them drop a Mr. O'Keefe on me. And I have to grab him like, come here. What did I tell you? It's either Detective O'Keefe or Coach O'Keefe. You start calling me Mr. O'Keefe, I'm looking around for my father. He's been dead 30 years and I hated the cocksucker. It's disconcerting.
I don't want the mister in front of mine.
Yeah, he doesn't like being called Mike Wood for the same.
Yeah, I go by I normally go by, well, you'll see on the screen when we put this out, I go by my artist name, which is Don Verb.
Yeah.
I don't go by my given name because of
Same reason.
who shares the name.
Yeah.
So
he's a junior.
Yeah, so that's part of the reason, so it is what it is. But
We should wrap this up, though. Unfortunately,
yeah, they're in there
because
screaming.
My kids are screaming.
Yeah, you
Take care of
gotta
those babies.
give a
She's
plug
two.
though. Give a plug for where people can find stuff, what you want them to find, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're interested in checking out my fiction, you can find me on Amazon or on my website, michaelokeefeauthor.com. And once you get on my webpage, there are 3 theatrical trailers for the 3 novels. Scroll a little past that and you'll find the link to my Amazon page. They're a good read, and if you like your murder with a solution, you can read my novels.
That's great. I might call one of these segments "Murder with a Solution."
I like it. Yeah. Oh.
Rather than "Murder is the Solution."
Oh. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure getting you on here for an interview, and it's I like that we can have a good conversation, and this was a very good conversation. So I respect the honesty.
You guys are easy to hang out with.
Yeah.
If you don't move to Asheville, I'll come south and hang out with you, but don't go to Asheville.
Oh, we're not.
No, we'll be 30
we'll
minutes
be in the mountains.
Yeah,
so.
we're going to be in a small mountain town about 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
Okay.
800 people in the whole town, and it's actually big. And we got
trout.
I don't know if you fish, but we got trout streams in the backyard, and
Yeah.
I like trout.
Yeah, see, that's part of the reason I moved down here. I love the scenery, the fishing, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's good for the kids too.
It will be. It will be.
Definitely better scenery here than where we were. So
yeah.
No snow. Well, there's going to be snow where we're moving, but not much
to look at that's pretty around the Detroit area. So.
No, not at all.
All right, guys. Thanks very much. All right, take
right.
care of those babies. It was great hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, you too. Have
You
a good
too,
night.
man. Thanks.
All right. There you go. There we go.
You did good. Not arguing with them. Okay, like how you're.
Are we done?
Yeah, I turned it up. Yeah.